As Julian Alvarez slotted away City's fourth in the second leg of their Champions League semi-final last Wednesday, I have an admission to make. I laughed. They were so far ahead on the night, performance, tactics and results-wise against Madrid, the greatest team in the history of the Champions League by the way. It was genuinely comical how easy it looked. It's one of the greatest performances I've seen from any club in any competition ever, let alone under that pressure and against that opponent. But then, my mind quickly turned to us. It's a question every team in Europe must ask themselves this summer, and we can be no different. How can we reach Man City's level? While I maintain we aren't as far away from them as we think from a tactical perspective, with our numbers against them at the Emirates telling an important story, execution, maturity and character-wise, we are miles off them. Like it or not, City are the benchmark. And as the saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. To be the best, you've got to beat the best. Live, laugh, love. Something along those lines. This is how Arsenal close the gap. Work smart, not expensive. One of the biggest objections to the proposal that we can compete with City is the idea that they're just miles ahead of us financially. Let's be clear, they have more money than us, but it's not as stark as you might think. Sheikh Mansour, the founder of the Abu Dhabi United Group, who have 81% ownership in City's holding company, has a net worth of around $16.8 billion according to AS, but Stan Kroenke's net worth is around $10.7 billion according to Forbes. In the last 10 years, City's net spend is second overall behind United, with just under €1 billion spent according to Transfermarkt. However, Arsenal are the fourth highest spenders in that time, with just under 800 million, 4/5 of what City have spent, and have been the biggest net spenders in a single season more recently than City, in 21-22. The Deloitte Money League has City as the number one club in the world in terms of revenue, meaning they have more to play with budget-wise according to FFP rules, with Arsenal in 10th worldwide. However, a return to top-level Champions League football should see Arsenal shoot up that table. It's worth noting that since the Kroenkes took full ownership in late 2018, Arsenal have a higher net spend than City in 3 out of the 4 subsequent summer transfer windows. In fact, Arsenal's net spend last season was their biggest ever, and would have seen them as highest spenders in the league in all but 2 of the last 9 seasons. The point is, Arsenal can and do spend money. We might think of City as some huge financial powerhouse, and they are. But they're not as far ahead as we think. We've seen Arsenal bidding around the £100 million mark for players in recent times, and City's record spend on Jack Grealish is only a little ahead of that. Now, there is context to this, of course. City did a huge amount of squad investment around Pep Guardiola's arrival at the club, and were the league's top net spenders 4 times between 13-14 and 17-18. But what that did was put them in a strong negotiating and planning position, and they now don't have to spend hundreds of millions every single summer, they just need to refresh the squad. They managed the assets they acquired in that time properly, something we're only just starting to do, getting our players tied down early. They can wait for the summer Haaland's release clause is active because they planned ahead. They can get terrific deals for Zinchenko, Sterling and Jesus last summer, and Ferran, Sane, Danilo and Iheanacho before. They're in a strong position because they play good football, they plan ahead, they get their players on proper deals, stick to a wage structure, and pull out when players' values go above what they want to pay. I mean, they're haggling over giving Gundogan an extra year at the moment. They absolutely have money. Definitely more than we have. But are you telling me we can't afford a Kanji last summer for £15 million? We can't afford Alvarez for 18 million, Edison for 35, Bernardo Silva for 45, Gundogan for 23? These are all guys in their first 15. They're rich, but they're smart, and we can definitely match them on the latter. It's about getting to a position of strength on the football pitch through investment, and then planning, profiling, and recruiting right from there. Talent is out there, and it doesn't have to cost hundreds of millions. Know your game model, recruit accordingly, develop the talent. We have to learn from them in this, and we appear to be doing so. And that leads us nicely onto this. Building properly. It doesn't take a genius to tell you that Arsenal need to recruit well this summer and moving forward to close the gap. But I want to make a note on squad building that I think often goes misunderstood. The Athletic recently released this. It's fine, I'm not having a go at The Athletic, but these kinds of things get bandied around on social media and TV and are seen as almost the best overall look at squad building, and I think subtly influence our thinking as fans. In my view, we have to get out of the 2 players for every position, A team, B team mentality if we want to compete with City. I think we need to collectively evolve 2 words in our football vocabulary to keep up. Starts becomes minutes, position becomes profile. What happens when you pick, for example, a starting striker with a backup behind them as a club is you immediately create a few problems. The first is a hierarchical one. One player sees themselves, even subconsciously, as less important to the team than the other. They see themselves as behind someone else for a single position, not just part of a group vying for minutes on the pitch. Someone may be in the team now, but you have to have as many people as you can believing if they perform well in training, they get the nod. That's how you create an elite, meritocratic culture. The second is a question of readiness. When you do call upon that player, because their squad role is to back up the position, they're unlikely to be match sharp as they won't have played. They often come in from the cold to play some minutes, and they're not at the level required. We saw that in the Europa League with certain players this season, in my opinion. The final problem is pathways. You stop yourself signing or promoting players because you think you already have 2 players for a position. You think the pathway is blocked, or you're stopping someone from developing, so you may not act on a good market opportunity. Instead, let's think about profiles. Can we be smart in the market and sign players who can play in multiple positions and be different options in areas of the pitch? That way you share out the minutes, you trim down the squad and wage bill, and put more football into the legs of players to keep them at the level in different areas of the pitch. It's then not about who's your starting striker, but who is suitable for that game, that role at that time. You make a happier squad, your players develop, and you have a number of different approaches. There are some encouraging signs with this. Arteta has explicitly referred to his substitutes as impactors, something he's learned from watching other sports. He's clearly thinking about using his squad better, and his record for goal involvements from substitutions is actually terrific. The best in the league, in fact, with 15. But, as always, there's a way to go to match City. At City, there's 2 players who played anything less than 600 minutes in all competitions this season. Phillips and Perrone, the second of whom signed in January, and realistically aren't anywhere near their first 15 or 16. For Arsenal, there's a number of players who we needed to play come the end of the season, like Kivior, Nelson and Smith Rowe, who have all played less than 600 minutes this season in all competitions as of recording. He has to use his squad better to keep it fresh, in my opinion. For me, minutes in the legs has been a factor at the end of a long season, but it does feel like Arteta is aware that squad depth is an issue from his recent comments. As Arteta is completing his squad, I'd like to see him sign players he truly believes in and trusts explicitly. Liking a player's potential is no longer enough to compete with this City team of robots. Next, take a long look in the mirror. The market isn't the only place that we can find advantages. One of Mikel's favourite lines when we drop points is about how Arsenal need to look in the mirror and see what we can do better ourselves. And that's exactly what we need to do this summer. Mikel was fascinating in a recent interview and was extremely specific about where Arsenal needed to improve, saying there are huge margins to go. And we are still very far away. I know this is a bit of a long clip, but if you got this far, I think you're interested. Have a listen to the whole thing. It's really instructive for the future of the club.
We're still very far. We can be much better at a lot of things.
What kind of things?
Anything. We can be much better in our build-up. We can be much better attacking man-to-man situation. We can be much better attacking open spaces, defending deep set pieces. We have huge margins to do. In terms of game management, a lot of things that we can do is still much better. We can be more ruthless to kill games. It's a lot of things that we have to seek for improvement.
So he said, build up, attacking man-to-man situations, attacking open spaces, set pieces, defending deep, game management and ruthlessness are just some of the things he wants to improve on next season. All of those things we as fans might have an idea of what we think it means, but I decided to get someone with a lot more coaching prowess than me to explain it. If you'd like to hear a UEFA B licensed coach break down exactly what Mikel is referring to there with specific examples, you can check out the bonus content to this video on Patreon, or by becoming a channel member by clicking join below, all for just £3 a month for that and loads of other benefits. But there's 2 more things he said that fascinated me as well. Firstly, he says, we don't have a single player who's reached his peak, and secondly, when asked if there's ideas he hasn't implemented yet because he doesn't believe the players are ready, he simply said this.
Yeah.
Arsenal are a young team, as we know, but there's no guarantee that young players improve year on year just because they're 23 or 24. As you'll know from your own life in business, at work, personally and in relationships, the way you become stagnant and regress is spending too long without fresh ideas, fresh ways of looking at things, fresh approaches, and ultimately fresh people. The fact we can honestly say we know Mikel has at least his own perspective on their development, areas of improvement so specific that he can list them in a press conference, and ideas that he hasn't even started discussing with them yet as he doesn't believe they're ready, tells me that he is very across the development of this team and where he sees it going. That press conference made me more sure than ever before that this team will be even better next season. And with the sale of Granit Xhaka, I think we're beginning to see Mikel's ruthlessness start to show. Final thing. Sky did an interview with John Stones and Aaron Ramsdale recently talking about the title race. It's a good interview, lots to like, but of course there's an element of every interview with mainstream media that is polished, media trained, and players looking to say the right thing. All I'll say is once you finish this, go and watch that interview. Maybe even with the sound off. You can't fool people. One of those guys has been in this situation before, and one hasn't. One has open body language, confidence, and consistent eye contact. The other has hunched shoulders and often looks down. One is speaking about how they weren't expecting a title race to be so intense, the other is speaking about how prepared they feel. In terms of handling these situations from a mental perspective, one of these guys is just much better prepared than the other, and you can tell just by looking at them. I'll let you decide who's who. We need time. Take a look at these images. Missing out on Europe in 2021, missing out on top 4 in 21-22, and missing out on the title in 22-23. Disappointment, sure, but every time the bar is being raised, and the direction of travel is good. We have to look in the mirror on and off the pitch and make some big decisions. But I'm more than confident we have the right guys at the helm to help us do that. This week, news broke that Mikel has placed an olive tree at the training ground and brought in a dog to reduce stress, hilariously called Win. It should have been called Fog the dog, but fine. Every single thing you can do helps, especially against this City side. It is a big summer ahead.